4 real sleepwalking footage cases with no signs of consciousness, true horror story. Before we begin, understand this. These aren't urban legends, and they aren't dramatized. Every account you're about to hear was documented through real footage and real people who never knew they were being watched. If stories like this pull you in, stay with this channel, subscribe, and engage now, because once this starts, you won't want to leave and you'll be back for what comes next. I've spent years collecting footage-linked sleepwalking cases, but these 2 were the first that convinced me something deeper was happening. Both involved cameras installed for unrelated reasons, both involved people with no memory afterward, and both showed behavior that didn't resemble unconscious movement at all. Case 1. Daniel Mercer. I first came across Daniel Mercer's case through a private home security archive shared in a medical forum. Daniel was a 26-year-old grad student living alone in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. He installed cameras in his apartment after a string of car break-ins in the complex. The cameras faced the living room, kitchen, and front door. They were never meant to monitor him. The footage from March 14th starts at 2:41 a.m. Daniel's bedroom door opens slowly. He steps out barefoot, wearing jeans and a hoodie he hadn't worn to bed. His posture is upright. His movements are smooth, controlled, and deliberate. This is the first detail that stood out to me. Most sleepwalkers move with hesitation. Daniel did not. He walked directly to the kitchen and stood in front of the sink for exactly 3 minutes. He did not move his hands. He did not sway. His chest rose and fell at a steady pace. His eyes were open but unfocused. When the camera zoomed digitally due to motion tracking, there was no visible blinking. At 2:44 a.m., Daniel turned his head toward the camera. The angle was wrong for coincidence. He didn't look past it or near it. He looked directly into the lens. The security system registered facial recognition but logged him as inactive. No emotional markers. No alertness. No consciousness flags. What followed was worse. Daniel walked to the front door, unlocked it, and opened it just enough for cold air to pour in. He stood there for several minutes. Snow drifted in. He didn't react. He didn't shiver. The footage shows his pupils unchanged despite the light difference from the hallway. At 2:51 a.m., he closed the door, locked it, and returned to bed. The entire sequence lasted 10 minutes. Daniel woke up late that morning with frost burns on his feet and no memory of leaving his room. When he reviewed the footage, he assumed it was staged. He checked the timestamps. He checked the logs. Everything matched. The cameras had never malfunctioned before or since. The most disturbing part came later, when a technician slowed the footage frame by frame. During the moment Daniel stared at the camera, his face showed no micro-expressions. No muscle tension. No cognitive engagement. It was a body moving without a present mind. Daniel moved out 2 weeks later. The cameras were never reinstalled. Case 2. Emily Rourke. Emily Rourke lived with her fiancé in Flagstaff, Arizona. I spoke to him directly while researching this case, though this narration is strictly my interpretation of the footage and reports. Emily was 24, healthy, and had no history of sleep disorders. The camera in question was installed to monitor their dog while they were away. The incident occurred at 3:08 a.m. on a Tuesday. Emily sat up in bed in a single motion. Not groggy. Not gradual. Her eyes opened instantly. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood without pause. The camera's infrared mode captured her face clearly. Her jaw was slack. Her eyes were open but glassy. She walked past the dog without reacting to it circling her legs. She didn't acknowledge the hallway mirror. She went straight into the laundry room. This is where the footage becomes difficult to explain. Emily stood in front of the washing machine and raised her hands chest high, holding them there as if gripping something invisible. She stayed in that position for nearly 6 minutes. No tremor. No adjustment. The camera registered motion only because of subtle shifts in her shoulders. Her breathing was shallow and slow. At 3:15 a.m., she lowered her hands and pressed her forehead against the machine. The pressure was enough to leave a faint mark visible the next morning. She did not flinch. She did not respond. She returned to bed at 3:19 a.m. and lay down exactly as she had been before. Emily had no memory of the event. When her fiancé showed her the footage, she laughed at first, then went quiet. She didn't recognize the posture. She didn't recognize the expression. She said it didn't feel like watching herself. It felt like watching something wearing her. A neurologist later reviewed the footage and noted something that stuck with me. Throughout the entire episode, Emily never exhibited a single subconscious correction movement. No balance checks. No protective reflexes. Her body behaved as if it was being operated, not inhabited. The camera was removed the next day. By the time I reached these next two cases, I stopped thinking of sleepwalking as a disorder. The footage didn't support that explanation anymore. What I saw instead were patterns, consistent behaviors across people who had never met, recorded in different states, under different circumstances, yet moving with the same absence of internal presence. These cases were harder to access, harder to verify, and harder to forget. Case 3, Marcus Holloway. Marcus Holloway was 31 and lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Dayton, Ohio. He worked night shifts at a packaging facility and installed exterior cameras to monitor package theft. The camera that captured his case was mounted above his garage, facing the driveway and sidewalk. It was not meant to record the interior of the house. The footage begins at 1:52 a.m. Marcus exits the front door wearing a thermal jacket over pajama pants. He is barefoot despite the temperature being below freezing. He closes the door behind him carefully, making sure it latches. His posture is straight. His gait is steady. There is no hesitation in his steps. He walks to the edge of the driveway and stops directly under the camera. For nearly 4 minutes, Marcus stands completely still. The camera's motion sensor briefly deactivates because there is no detectable movement. Snow falls around him. His breath is visible in the cold air, but his body shows no reaction to the temperature. At 1:56 a.m., Marcus tilts his head upward. The angle is exact. He looks straight into the camera lens. I've reviewed enough footage to recognize when someone is aware of being recorded. Marcus showed none of the signs. His eyes were open, fixed, and unblinking. His facial muscles were slack. There was no tension in his brow or jaw. He wasn't curious. He wasn't startled. He simply aligned himself with the camera's position. What happens next is the part that still unsettles me. Marcus raises his right hand slowly, palm facing outward, and holds it there. Not a wave. Not a gesture of greeting. Just a raised hand, suspended in the air. He maintains that position for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Then he lowers it, turns around, and walks back into the house. The next morning, Marcus woke up with severe frostbite forming on the soles of his feet. He assumed he had stepped outside briefly while half awake. That assumption collapsed when he reviewed the footage. Medical professionals later analyzed the video. One noted the complete absence of involuntary pain response. Another pointed out that Marcus never shifted his weight, even as ice accumulated beneath his feet. The body remained balanced without correction. Marcus moved out of the house 3 days later. He sold it at a loss and refused to install cameras anywhere else. He told investigators he couldn't shake the feeling that the footage wasn't showing him being watched, but showing him being checked. Case 4, Allison Greene. Allison Greene's case was the last one I reviewed, and the one that made me stop collecting footage altogether. Allison was 19 and living with her parents in rural Vermont. They owned a large property surrounded by woods. Motion-activated trail cameras were placed along the tree line to monitor wildlife. One of those cameras captured something it wasn't meant to. At 2:14 a.m., the trail camera activates. Allison steps into frame from the left side of the image. She is wearing a long-sleeved shirt and jeans. No shoes. Her hair is down, partially covering her face. She stops in the center of the clearing and looks forward. Trail cameras record in bursts. Every image taken of Allison shows her closer to the camera than the last. There are no gaps suggesting wandering or confusion. Each movement is direct. She approaches until her face fills the frame. Her eyes are open. There is no reflection from the infrared light. No visible pupil response. Her mouth is slightly open, but there is no breath fog, despite the cold. Then she does something that still doesn't make sense. Allison kneels. Not slowly, not cautiously. She drops to her knees in one controlled motion and lowers her head toward the ground. The next 3 images show her remaining in that position, unmoving, for over 6 minutes. The final image in the sequence captures her standing again, facing away from the camera, and walking into the woods. She returned to the house at 4:03 a.m., entering through the back door. Her parents found mud on her knees and small cuts on her palms. Allison had no memory of leaving the house. She didn't recognize the footage. She said watching it felt like seeing someone else wearing her body incorrectly. Investigators searched the area where the camera recorded her. They found no footprints leading deeper into the woods. No signs of disturbance. The ground showed only impressions where she had knelt. Neurological analysis of the footage noted the same thing seen in previous cases. No subconscious self-preservation. No instinctive reactions. No signs of awareness. Just a body executing a sequence. After Allison's case, I stopped telling myself these were isolated incidents. The similarities were too precise. The posture, the eye behavior, the alignment with cameras, the lack of correction, pain response, or memory. Whatever was moving these people didn't behave like a dream. It behaved like something practicing. If you made it to the end, you already know this isn't content you casually forget. If you want more documented cases like these, stay connected here. Subscribe, engage, and let the algorithm know this kind of horror belongs in your feed. Stories like this don't surface often, but when they do, this is where you'll find